Did you hear all of those different chords being played throughout? Guess what? It was just one chord. It was actually a C7 chord played with a concept called chord inversions, where I take the chord and I play it in different positions on the neck. So we're going to take a look at this today. It's a super fun concept, very useful, and it's definitely going to step up your playing. Let's dive in. Hey, before we get started, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe, and click that alert bell so you know when the next video is coming your way. If you're interested in more learning resources, head over to AllForUke.com, where we have a full searchable library of songs, song sheets, practice tracks, worksheets, and more. All for you, AllForUke.com. So before we get to the chord inversions, let's talk a little bit about the notes of the neck. So we start off here by learning that our string names are the open strings, G, C, E, and A. And I have a video on the notes of the neck if you want to learn about the entire fretboard, because I think that is an essential component to learning chord inversions, is learning the notes of the neck. Because when we play our first position C7 chord here in the root position, we're actually playing G, C, E, and then our first fretted note here is a B flat note on the first fret. So the four notes that make up the C7 chord are G, C, E, and B flat. Now what you'll notice is this is a C7 chord, yes, but the C note is not the note that we're actually fretting. That note is this open C string, and that is the note that we call the root of the chord. So the foundation of chord inversions is that we have four notes that exist within this C7 chord, we know that, but we can actually take and rearrange the notes of the chord to play it in different positions. That's why we can move this chord all over the neck. Another concept I want to quickly address is assigning each of these notes a number. When we talk about our C7 chord, our four notes are C, E, G, and B flat. So if we're talking about this in relationship to the C major scale, and our C major scale is C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, or if we were to assign numbers to that scale, it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 1. So when we talk about a chord is made up of a collection of notes played together. In the case of a dominant 7 chord, like the C7 chord, the chord is made up of the first, the third, the fifth, and the flat seventh of the major scale. If we were to look at this numerically, we would say the C, or the open C string here, is our root. The open E string is our third. The open G string is our fifth. And the B flat note here is our flat 7. Now when we go through each of these shapes, I'll show you how these notes will be rearranged, and that's ultimately the reason why we can take this C7 chord and play it here, and here, and here, because we're essentially just rearranging those notes. So our first shape here is C7, root position. Let's take a look at C7 now played in first inversion. So to play this chord, I bar the 3rd fret with my index finger and I place my middle finger on the C string of the 4th fret. You've probably seen this shape before, maybe played as a B7 or an A7, but this is our C7 shape. When I look at this shape, I think to myself, what does this look like to me? And to me, it looks just like what we play down here as an A7. So if you've ever worked with movable chord shapes, you're going to find out that all of these shapes we're playing here are shapes that you already know in root position. Because if we take this A7 chord and move it up here to the 1st fret, it's B flat 7, 2nd fret it's B7, and 3rd fret it becomes C7. So that's actually what happens and why the shape works. But what really happens to make this into an inversion is we have rearranged the notes of this chord. Instead of the 5th being on top, we have this note here on the 3rd fret of the G string, and that note is our B flat note because we have G, G sharp, A sharp, which is also B flat. So here's our first note, and we know that B flat is the flat 7 of the chord. Then we take a look here at the 4th fret on the C string, and if we go up on the C string, we have C, D, E. Lo and behold, the E we know is the 3rd of our chord. So we have the flat 7, we have the 3rd, and then down here we're playing a G note on the 3rd fret of the E string, and the G we know is our 5. And then finally we have our 3rd fret of the A string, and we know that is a C note because we have, I'm sorry for the little misplay there, we have A, B flat, B, C. So when you look at this chord now, all we've done is rearrange the chord to make the flat 7, 3rd, 5th, and root. So the root has changed from first inversion. The root was on our C string. And when we go to our first inversion of the chord, the root now is down here on the A string. So take a listen here when I move from root position to first inversion. So here's C7 root position and C7 first inversion. Same notes, just a different order. So this is a good way to start practicing going from root position back and forth to first inversion. If you're digging the sound of my uke, head over to AllForUke.com/shop. You can have a Kali ukulele for yourself. When you buy your Kali ukulele through AllForUke, you're supporting us, and we really appreciate it. Make sure you check it out. Concerts, sopranos, tenors, baritones, a wide selection of accessories, capos, and more. All for you, AllForUke.com/shop. Moving right along here into second inversion. So let's take a look at the second inversion of C7. We're going to play this with our index finger on the 5th fret of the G string, our ring finger on the 7th fret of the C string, our middle finger, the 6th fret of the E string, and our pinky down here on the A string, 7th fret. And I'll play this chord for you. Again, just another C7 chord. And if you look at my ring, middle, and pinky finger here, you'll notice it looks like a very familiar shape, and that's because it is a familiar shape called G7. So if you look at this chord shape and you play it down here, it's actually just a G7 chord that I'm taking and moving up, and I add my index finger to cover that open string. This G7 becomes G sharp 7, A7, A sharp 7, B7, and finally, here it is. It's a C7 chord. So this is our second inversion, and what has again happened here is we have rearranged the notes. There's only 4 places the notes can go when we have 4 strings. So in this position, we start off with our G string 5th fret, which we find out is G, A, B, C. There is the root of our chord now. The root is moved from the C string down here to the A string, and now in second inversion, the root is up here on the G string. Our ring finger is playing the 7th fret of the C string, and that means we're going C, D, E, F, G. And G's relationship to C is C, D, E, F, G. So that's the 5th now. So we have root, 5th, and then down here on the E string, if we count up to the 6th fret, we have E, F, G, A, B flat. We know the B flat is our flat 7 of the C7 chord, and then we know we only have one more note to worry about, and that's the 7th fret of the A string. And we go up from our A string, we have A, B flat, C, D, E, and that's the 3rd of our chord. So now we know we have root, 5, flat 7, and 3, and those notes make up a C7 chord. So now that we have our second inversion, you can practice going root, first inversion, second inversion, first inversion, root position. Now let's take a look at our third and final inversion of the C7 chord. So we're playing up here now, a little higher register. This chord will sound like this. So we're playing our middle finger on the 9th fret of the G string, our ring finger here on the C string of the 10th fret, our index finger on the E string of the 8th fret, and our pinky scrunched down here on the A string of the 10th fret. So this is what it sounds like again. On a smaller uke, these are a little tougher to access. If you have a tenor, a concert, it'll be a little bit easier for you, but this is good stuff to really be able to utilize the full landscape of the fretboard here. So let's take a look at this chord now and how it is built. So we start off here with our open G. We have G, A, B, C, D. On the 9th fret, we're playing an E note. And then we take a look at our C string here on the 10th fret. So we could look at this a couple different ways. We know that our 12th fret is going to be C again. So when I look at this, I start from the top here. So I know 12th fret is C. If I go back to the 10th fret, I've just lowered it by a full whole step. I know that's my B flat note. So we have, to start here, we have our 3rd, which is E. We have our flat 7, which is B flat. And then down here on the E string, if I count up, E, F, G, A, B. There's our C note. So our root now is moved to its final place, which is on the E string. And then we know that we only have one note left here, which is our 5th. And our 5th is played down here on the A string of the 10th fret. And again, you can find that out by going backwards from the A note here on the 12th fret. A whole step down is our G note, and that is our 5th. Before we move on here, do me a favor and make sure you're subscribed to the channel. Leave your comments and questions below, and also go over to AllForUke.com where I have additional resources for you to learn, PDFs, practice tracks, all the goodies that you need to get better. Now the cool part about inversions is, instead of just playing this C7 chord, we can play it in 4 different places. So for this little exercise I put together, we're going to walk up the inversions and then all the way back down to root position. So we'll do 2 strums on each. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. And I'm putting the metronome on because the metronome is going to give us that consistency, so we're landing on the chords at the same time every time. So let's try this now at 70 BPMs. I'll get it started and we'll do a 4 count in. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Again, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Now we're going to bump the tempo up to 100 beats per minute. I know it's a little bit of a jump, and you do not have to go this fast. I would encourage you to go super slow to start and really work on these chord shapes. But I want to show you how this might be played. There was a long section of a song that was played with a C7 chord. These are the options you have now to move around and play over the same C7 chord here. So we're bumping it up to 100 beats per minute. Hang on tight. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 1. Again. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1.